Peace and love, creatives. It's the Mixed Media Royal Rumble.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make this video as short and concise as I can possibly make it.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be quick. Get a snack.
So I'm gonna start with the sketchbooks and paper that I'm going to be testing out. So this is the Delusions by Ranger, and it's called a mixed media sketchbook, so I will be including that. This is Fabriano Mixed Media paper, and it claims to be good for wet and dry, so that's going in there. This is by Clairefontaine, and it is mixed media, so I'll be including that. And then these are just different colors of the same Clairefontaine sketchbook. That one was gray, this is denim and sage. Then we have Fabriano 1264 mixed media. Then we have the Toned 10 Strathmore Mixed Media. Now this is Canson's dry mixed media, but I felt like I should put this in the mix, so doing that. And that's the gray, and this is the natural color, so like natural color. This is the Strathmore 400 series, and it's mixed media. This is a sketchbook that I got in Walmart. It's You Create, and it is claimed to be mixed media. And next is Canson's Fluid Media Multi-Techniques mixed media again. So then we have the B Company paper, and this is their mixed media paper. Then we have Canson again, and this is their mixed media. I'll go more into depth on each one. This is another Strathmore mixed media, but this is the 300 series. So, yeah. And I recently got the Ohuhu mixed media sketch pad, so I'm going to be trying that out. And these are marker pads, and they came in a set of 2. I was curious to see if they worked with mixed media, so I'm going to throw them into the mix too. So we have a lot of paper to get into, and strap yourself in.
The first thing I'm going to do is take a page out of each sketchbook and write the paper quality and company on the back of each sheet so that I don't get confused during this very, very, very long process. Some of the paper they're sewn in to the sketchbook, and what I do there is I kind of like use a blade to cut it out instead of ripping it out so that I don't ruin the integrity of the sketchbook.
Okay, so this is the last piece of paper that I have to write on, and this is the Ranger Delusions Creative Journal. It's made with cardstock, but in the description it states that it's wet media, dry media friendly, so there's no GSM or weight or anything. I will try to look up a little bit more information and maybe put it down somewhere. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna do this in some kind of order just so that I have the colored type pages in a separate section because I know that most of you lean towards just a plain white page. So here we go.
Now what I'm doing is getting every sheet to exactly the same size so that I can do a very close swatch and grid, kind of like for each page. Don't worry, all the excess paper that I have left over I will use for scrap, for testing material. The paper will get used, it will not get thrown out. After each sheet is cut out, I am making the grid or the columns of different materials that I personally use and would like to see if they work well on each piece of paper. So I'm going to have a colored pencil column, I'm going to have a marker column, a paint pen column, a watercolor column, ink column, and I'm also going to have the water paintbrush column.
The different types of things that I'm going to try out on each paper will be ink, colored pencil, I have Prismacolor, and I also have Faber-Castell. Prismacolor is known to be softer than Faber-Castell, so I want to show the hard and soft types of pencil on the paper. Alcohol markers, paint pens, watercolor brush pens, and also we're going to try out some watercolor as well. Okay, so let's get started.
Okay, so this first page is the Strathmore 400 series. It's 184 pound and 300 GSM. I'm going to give these columns a grading from 1 to 10. And at the end of it, we'll rate the overall paper quality or versatility for it being a quote-unquote mixed media paper. So we're going to start off with the ink, and the ink I'm going to give it a 8.5 on 10. The pencils worked really well on this paper, and I'm going to give it a 9. Marker blending and lay down, really nice, another 9. As far as paint pens are concerned, this paper held up very well. I'm going to give it a 7.5. Now with the watercolor brush pen, again, worked really well. I'm happy with the result, and I'm going to give it a 9. Watercolor, I'm going to give it a 9.5. Next up is going to be the Canson Fluid Mixed Media paper. This one is 90 pounds and 250 GSM. For the ink, I am going to give it a 5. Colored pencil, I'm going to give it 6.5. As far as marker is concerned on this paper, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Moving on, I know I'm going a little bit quicker, but it is what it is. Moving on to paint pen. There was pilling. Maybe some line work with the ink pen. I'm not a fan. I'm gonna give this one a 5. The watercolor brush pen, actually, I'll give this one a 7.5. And if anyone has used watercolor on a Canson paper, you're already familiar with the fact that it falls different. And if you're okay with that, then, you're good. But if you're not, move on. Don't use this for watercolor paper. I give this a 5. Up next is the You Create paper. This one I got in Walmart. There's no information as far as GSM is concerned. The ink laid down on this paper is poor. It buckles. It just doesn't take it. I don't recommend it. Pencil is okay, but I wouldn't recommend it. This paper is really thin, just to give you a heads up, but it does make for really good marker, like alcohol marker paper. So there's that. Anything else, to be honest with you, on this paper in particular, I just don't recommend unless you're just using it for marker. It's called mixed media, but I wouldn't use it for mixed media. I honestly don't think I'm ever going to use this paper, to be honest with you. So I kind of wasted my money, unfortunately. I'm sure I'll figure something out to use this paper for, but not for anything that I want to make art with. You know what I mean? Not even to put marker on, to be honest with you. I didn't even give it numbers. I'm sorry. It's just not even worth it, to be honest with you. If you bought this paper for anything besides sketching and maybe pencil, like charcoal and stuff like that, I wouldn't recommend it besides marker. It's just awful. Okay, next up is B Company paper, mixed media. This one is 93 pounds and 150 GSM. Now, this paper actually took ink pretty good. It took the Prismacolor okay. It actually took the Faber-Castell a little bit better, in my opinion. As far as marker is concerned, it took it okay. It wouldn't be the first paper that I choose to do marker on, but if I want to use marker in my illustration and other things, I guess I'd be okay with it. Paint pens, I don't think I could recommend this, only because there's a lot of pilling on the paper with just one pass of the paint pen, so I can't recommend it. As far as the water brush pen is concerned, not bad. It's good. And even if I scrubbed with the watercolor brush pen, it didn't pill up. So that's always a plus when you're using watercolor markers, because they can tend to pill. So that's a plus. And for watercolor, I think it did pretty well. I wasn't upset with it. But just beware, this paper's pretty thin. Moving on to a beginner's favorite, the Canson XL Mixed Media. Now this one is 98 pounds and 160 GSM, and it's in the middle as far as thickness is concerned. And honestly, this is like it holds a certain place in my heart kind of thing, because it's one of the first papers that I made sketchbooks with and that I made art with. So yeah, it holds watercolor and inks pretty much the same. It doesn't quite go like, you know, cellulose paper would go with watercolor. So you just have to beware. If you're used to cheap, inexpensive paper for watercolor, then that's exactly what you got here. But it'll do the job. You just have to be careful and not overload your paper with water. As far as pencils are concerned, it was okay. It was okay. Markers, again, it's okay. It'll get the job. I think fives all around for everything, to be honest with you. I'd be careful with the watercolor brush pens, only because they're the pilling, not well, the pilling, but also feathering with the ink as well if you layer. Yeah. Besides that, it's, you know, it holds a special place in my heart. So I'll always have a pack of Canson Mixed Media paper just lying around when I want to do fun little activities with kids or whatever. Moving on to the Fabriano 1264 Mixed Media paper. It's 120 pound and it's 200 GSM. It's again in the middle of thick as far as paper thickness is concerned. It holds, I think, 7.5s across the board is kind of like how I would rate this paper. It's not awful. I would be a little bit careful as far as putting paint pens. So maybe a 6.5 on the paint pens, but everything else nice and even across the board. It's not a bad paper to work with. If you have the 1264 mixed media pad, I think you'll do fine with it if you're using mixed media. Next is the Strathmore Mixed Media 300 series. This one is 117 pounds, 190 GSM. And to be honest with you, if I did not use the sister paper, the 400 series, this would not, it might have gotten a higher rating, but because I have already tried the 400 series, that was actually the first one we did, I just, it went lower than I think I went lower than I should have, but it takes ink okay. The colored pencils, I like the way it takes Prismacolor. I'm not too crazy about how it takes Faber-Castell, but to each his own. I am not a pencil person. Like, I use pencil in my work, but I don't just use pencils. So take my pencil findings with a grain of salt. Hopefully you can see the textures and make the, deduce for yourself if it's something that you would like on your paper if you use pencil more than any other media. As far as paint pens are concerned and marker, the marker is okay. I feel like there's a lot more bleeding on this paper with the alcohol marker. And the paint pen, it definitely pills up, and also it pills up with the watercolor brush pen too. It takes watercolor okay. I mean, this paper gets like a 7.5 across the board. It's just like, it's okay. If you had a choice between the 300 and the 400, go for the 400. Yeah, that's the one. Moving on to the Ohuhu marker paper. Now, mind you, this is marker paper. It is not mixed media paper. I just decided to throw it in and see how it would swim, you know? So let's see how it'll swim. It takes pencil nice. It does not take ink very well. There's like these little spots left over after it dries that I don't recommend using ink on. It takes marker, paint pens, okay. Alcohol marker, it takes it good. It definitely feathers with the watercolor brush pens. If you like a smooth surface for your pencils, minimal texture, that's what you got here. You know what I mean? So I think more tooth would be the right thing that someone would want if they were just primarily using colored pencils in their piece. As far as watercolor is concerned, it gives the same vibe that a Canson paper would give. I don't recommend it. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the Ohuhu is the marker paper 120 pound and it's 200 GSM. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the best. It's not the best if you're going to use mixed media. And it's okay for marker too. And I'll get to why I say that when I get to the paper. I think it's this one. Yeah. Okay, this paper coming up is the actual Ohuhu mixed media paper. Now this one took ink like a boss. The texture on the paper, for me, I like it. It's not too much tooth, but enough to give me a nice decent amount of layers for my pencil. It takes alcohol marker wonderfully, and I'm here for it. It also takes paint pens surprisingly well. Even when you layer it, it pills a little bit, but if you let it dry in between layers, you'll be fine. There's no pilling whatsoever. As far as watercolor brush pens are concerned, it takes it okay. There's a little bit of feathering, but nothing you can't work your way around letting the layer dry before. But I would not use this. It was if that was your main focus, watercolor brush pens, I'd say depending on the brush pen, you might want to steer clear of this one. And it actually takes watercolor really well too. It's very reminiscent of the Canson mixed media, just a slightly better. And this is again the Ohuhu mixed media, 120 pound, 200 GSM. Honestly, if you had to choose or you were thinking which Ohuhu sketch pad should I get, the mixed media or the alcohol marker, I say go for the mixed media. It takes the alcohol marker even better than the marker paper, and it takes all the other medias as well. So that's just my opinion. And lastly, we are looking at the Fabriano Mixed Media sketch pad. Now this one is a wad of paper. It's a really good price, and this is the paper that I was primarily making my sketchbooks with when I found this paper. It takes ink very well. It has a little bit more tooth than the other couple of pages. Did I say it's 108 108 pound, 160 GSM. So it's thick, but not too thick. It takes marker okay and blending. It does well. It also takes paint pen okay, but there will be some pilling, so just look out for that. The watercolor brush pen, it actually takes it really well. You don't see any of the blooms or anything like in the other pages. And then watercolor, it takes it very, very nice as well. I like the way it takes it, but Again, if I did not meet up with the 1264 Fabriano paper, this would be my go-to paper. I have a lot of this paper left, and it's not like I won't use it, so there's that. Now we're gonna go from a scale of 1 to 10, and we're gonna rate these papers based on overall which one is the top dog, which one is the one you're going to be able to use for every medium that I put on each paper. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would I rate these? I would rate the Strathmore 400. I'd probably give it a 9. I would give it a 9 because overall it did really good with every single media that I like using with this with mixed media paper. Now the Canson fluid, that one surprised me too. It took everything pretty well, but typical Canson with watercolor, it just gives you a different kind of finish. And if you're not used to that finish on your watercolor art, then you might be disappointed. But if you're used to it and you like that finish and that look, then you know, I like this one. I would say that this paper gets a total of an 7. And I put that because of how it does not take the paint pens and the way it takes the watercolor as well. Next is the B Company paper. Surprisingly for how thin it is, I didn't hate it. It's not my favorite. I give it a 5. You create, oh my gosh, buckling, can't take pencil. It went good with marker though, so the marker gets like a 9 out of 10 for if you're gonna just use marker with it. That's it's good. Anything else though, I wouldn't recommend unless you're just putting a little bit of detail, especially like with paint marker and with the watercolor brush pen or any kind of watercolor or any kind of wet medium. Just no. I did not like that paper. I will never purchase it again. I give it, what did I give it? I'm gonna give it a 2. Next is the Canson XL Mixed Media paper. Not great with watercolor, okay with ink. It did good with pencil, did okay with marker, so I'm gonna say I give you a 6.5. Next is the Fabriano 1264 or I264, whatever, however you want to say it. It takes watercolor okay. It takes the watercolor brush pens. It takes the paint pens really well and the marker. Okay with pencil. I'm gonna give this one an 8. Now this one is the Strathmore 300 series. It's okay. I honestly would compare the 400 and the 300, 400 being cold press type of feel to it, a little bit more tooth, and the 300 a little bit more like a hot press, less tooth. But it took marker good, it took ink and watercolor okay. Honestly though, if I had to choose one or the other, I would definitely go with the 400. So I'm gonna give this one a I think I'm gonna give it Took pencil really nice. It did take pencil really nice. I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Okay, the Ohuhu Mixed Media paper. Game changer? I'm gonna give this one a 9. A 9. What did I give? A 9. What is that one? The 400. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. Give that one a 9.5. It took paint pens. It took the brush pens. Although now that I'm looking at it, there is a little bit of flowering. I don't know if it's just the way I applied. I think it's just the way I applied it, to be honest with you. No, I'll stick by it. 9.5. Next is the marker paper. I think if I used this and I didn't use the Ohuhu Mixed Media, I would feel differently about it. But being that I have both with in front of me, I mean, look at the ink. I don't know if you can see that. Do you see the payload on the ink and the way it distributed when you did wet on wet? No, and I know it's a marker paper, so it really shouldn't be a contender in this, but I did it anyway. But I am going to give this a 5.5. And last is the Fabriano Mixed Media pad, paper pad. This is like my OG. I love making sketchbooks with this. It's kind of like my go-to. The tooth on it is okay. It's not heavy, but it's okay. But it's definitely not top 10. Or maybe it is top 10. I give this a 7 point. No, I give this an 8.5. I give it an 8.5. All right, so in order from the least favorite to the most favorite. Ew. No. Never again. No. You create. I was disappointed with this one. I really was. I don't know. I have the watercolor paper and it's like night and day. It took everything okay. I don't know. I was expecting more. Marker paper. Listen, to get a 5.5, to get it better than other mixed media papers, I mean, come on. Can't be mad at that. Canson XL. This is my OG friend right here because this is like the mixed media paper that we all start off with. I feel like even if we're doing other things besides markers or whatever, I feel like this is one of the first sketchbooks that a large portion of us do pick up at the arts and crafts store. So a 6.5 for beginners is not bad. I don't think it's bad. Next is the Canson Fluid Media. Honestly, I thought it would take liquids a little bit better just because of, the fluid mixed media kind of thing. So although a lot of these took the pencils very well, the wet on wet stuff and things like that just wasn't it. But I mean, a 7 isn't that bad, is it? The Fabriano I264 Mixed Media. I kind of have a love-hate with this because, I mean, it's thick paper and you would think that it handles wet a little bit better, and it really doesn't. So I gave it an 8. And I really shouldn't have, to be honest with you. I shouldn't have done this in 8. What's this one? You know what? I'm changing my mind. 7.5. Just like this one, which is the Strathmore 300. And honestly, I think it's kind of like that, the Ohuhu part of it. If I had this one and I didn't have the 400, I might feel differently, but because I've had the 400 and what my preference is leans toward that kind of paper, this one fell a little bit shorter. And next is the Fabriano Mixed Media. I feel like I did this twice. Maybe not. Okay, so this one gets an 8.5, and the reason being is because this is one of my favorite papers, so that's what it gets. Next up is probably the thickest of the bunch, and it's the Strathmore 400. And I regret this one being the first one I did because I went really light with the watercolor and the ink, but everything went on really well. I tried to do a blend, but you know, blending with paint markers is going to do just that, especially on mixed media paper that you haven't prepped for paint markers. But besides that, it took everything else really nice. And the winner didn't get a perfect 10, but the winner of this one, in my opinion, is the Ohuhu Mixed Media paper. And the reason being is it took everything really, really well. Now, this is just a test of like swatching. There's a whole different, it's a whole different ball game when you're actually doing art with it, and that could come in a later video, or maybe not, to be honest with you, because I don't think I have that in me to do that. Okay, I want to thank you for watching and your patience along with this. I hope that this has helped you make a informed decision with picking the right mixed media sketchbook for you. If there's any questions that you have regarding this video, please don't hesitate to put in the comments, and I will answer it as good as possible. Anything that you might have, any question that you might have regarding these mixed media papers. Yeah, thanks for watching, and as always, peace and love.